So to the women's uneven bars, and introduction of the competitors. Jasmin Marder of Austria, the third strongest in qualification. Elina Virova of Latvia, the 18-year-old from Riga, the second strongest in qualifying. Marta Piankulesha, the 33-year-old nine-time Polish all-around champion and the sixth strongest in qualification. Lara Hinsberger of Germany, a 15-year-old senior international debut to her, the fifth strongest in qualification. Here is the top qualifier, Diana Varinska of Ukraine. 19-year-old has a fiercely difficult routine. Zoya Sekai from Hungary, 17-year-old, was the seventh strongest in qualification. Lisa Zimmermann of Germany, the fourth strongest in qualification. And we finish with Chenga Bachkoy, the eighth strongest in the qualification process. But it could be very interesting because there were some losses of contact with the apparatus in qualifying, so some of the scores could really change a bit. Now to the men's pommel horse, and we've just seen Zoltan Kalai, the 35-year-old, eighth strongest qualifier, followed by Nariman Kurbanov of Kazakhstan, the top man in qualifying. Once more, Christopher Mezaros of Hungary, the seventh strongest in qualification. Come on, it's a pommel horse competition, so we have to have Filip Ude, it's the law. The 34-year-old, second strongest in qualifying, one of the very finest to take to the pommel horse. Matvey Petrov of Albania, the sixth strongest in qualification, 30-year-old gymnast, used to represent the Russian Federation. Daniel Kopenik of Austria, fifth best in qualification with 13.9, the 25-year-old, and just his second final. Bronze medalist from the floor, Petro Pakniuk, the fourth strongest in the qualification process. And another Croatian veteran, Robert Seligman, the third strongest in the qualification process. The fifth time he's been in a pommel horse final in Szombathely. That's a field in both directions you can really get excited about. Glimpse there of Matvey Petrov, the Albanian, the strongest difficulty score in qualification with some problems with his execution. But Albania is a nation that has not enjoyed enormous success at international level. It could well be, and it's always a tricky thing to assess the data of this, it could well be the first international medal in an FIG competition that Albania has won if he's able to do something with that execution. Of course, if insert name here is able to do something with the execution is kind of the point of gymnastics. I'm aware I make it sound much simpler than it actually is, but he has got a cracking, difficult routine. Elina Virova, who marked her 17th birthday competing at the European Games, carried the flag at the closing ceremony. Might well be that Mezaros has rather warmed up after his performance on floor, which had some very exciting moments to it. The start list for the women's uneven bars final, and we begin with the third and second strongest qualifiers respectively, Jasmin Marder and Elina Virova. Diana Varinska goes fifth in the order. She was the top qualifier with a considerably higher difficulty score than any other competitor. There was real daylight between Varinska and Virova in qualification, 13.15 to 12.4. But as I mentioned earlier, there were some idiosyncratic moments to some of the qualification routines, and the chance actually for the qualification positions to be made a mockery of. The start list for the men's pommel horse competition. Nariman Kurbanov goes second. The 22-year-old from Almaty scored 15 in qualifying. A very fine performance. Philippe Houdet was the second best performer with 14.65, and then Robert Seligman, the third strongest performer, with 14.45. But as I mentioned, keep an eye on Mr. Petrov, who had a difficulty of 6.3 in qualification, the strongest of anyone. An interesting little trivia question for those of you who love that sort of thing in gymnastics, and if you're watching this in the early hours of the morning or late moments of the night around the world, then you probably are somebody who loves these kind of things about gymnastics. But Matvey Petrov, and there he is, although he moved to Albania in 2016, he did a few years ago team representing Russia in a mixed pairs team competition in Czech Republic with another gymnast to win the gold. But in that mixed pairs competition, who was it that he teamed with? I'll give you a moment. Now, those of you I mentioned at the start who are watching the sport for the first time, and one of the great joys of competitions as they resume after such a lengthy hiatus is a lot of people have realised how much they've missed sport and are switching on the TV to something new. So key things for you to bear in mind if you're acclimatising yourself with gymnastics. Then one of the great challenges and great features of pommel horse gymnastics is that it has a perpetual motion in a way that other pieces of apparatus don't have. There is no stillness required. It's constant movement, and the key for the gymnast is to avoid leg separation when they're going for those straight leg skills, because that's how they keep their sense of swing, of turn, as is being demonstrated most ably there by Mr. Kurbanov. Toe point is very important as well, and keeping a good diagonal line, as one can see there. Into the uneven bars, where the transitions between the two are some of the most exciting elements of the routines. You'll see quite a lot of transitions from the low to the high that have various names. They've all come, generally speaking, from the Shaposhnikova group of transitions, but depending on where the gymnast has their feet, whether they're on the bars or circling with the hips or in a stolder position, more on that later, and they have different names. And there are lots of release elements as well that the gymnasts will undertake. And as I say, apologies to those of you who, of course, know all this information very well, but one of the great things about popping the TV on a weekend is discovering something new, and it may be that that's what you're doing with gymnastics. And if so, welcome. And welcome to the women's uneven bars final. We begin with Yasmin Mader of Austria. She started the vault competition 2. So the reigning Austrian uneven bars champion, Yasmin Mader, third strongest in qualification. Needs to build up her sense of swingfulness as she goes into a overshoot or bail, depending on where in the world you're from. Precisely executed Jaeger. Interesting dismount from the Austrian gymnast. So Yasmin Mada ended her 2019 early due to a ligament injury. As well with that Jaeger skill. Had a 4.8 difficulty in the qualifications. Zoltán Kalai. That takes you back, doesn't it? 35-year-old from Budapest. Has won a handful of World Cup medals going back to Anadia in 2014. How fantastic that he has returned. It's the 8th strongest qualifier. We haven't seen him since the Guimarães World Cup in 2018. He won silver there. Didn't quite seem to be fully in control there. Good secure hand placement. Just losing the legs a touch, and he's done very well to bring those back. Oh, what a good recovery. He needs to really work to bring himself up to handstand, which he does in installments. Zoltán Kalai had some lovely moments to it as a routine, as it always does with him. Last time we saw him at a World Championships was Montreal in 2017. Looked as though he might be about to exit the apparatus early, but real strength shown by Kalai. He did manage to get through that pirouette into the dismount. Yasmin Mada, 12.25 for her. Execution down by 1/10.5 from qualification. Otherwise all the same. Elina Verova, the 18-year-old from Riga, second strongest performer in qualification with 12.4. Next the Jaeger suitably into the overshoot. Oh, it's cleanly executed work from Elina Verova. Another gymnast who will bolster her difficulty one suspects as time goes on. It was executed in a nice way. She's trained at the Gymnastics Olympic Centre in Riga, but also at the Les Moreres Club in Esplugues de Llobregat in Barcelona. Took part in the Spanish League competition at the start of the year.
leszökkenés félfordulattal, és akkor rögtön egy talforgás, kézenállás, majd újra a felső karfán folytatja. És a bicska dupla szartó leugrással fejezi be a gyakorlatát.
$12.6 for Zoltán Kalai. Quite a bit down from the 13.5 he received in qualification due to the unintentional dismount towards the very start. 22-year-old Nariman Kurbanov from Almaty in Kazakhstan, the top performer by a fair old way, 15, a 6.2 difficulty and an 8.8 execution. This could be a lovely routine if all goes as it did in qualification. Keeping the line nice and straight. Beautiful. To the Magyar. We know a thing or two about that here. Engrossing work from Nariman Kurbanov. Father was a gymnastics coach. The way that he became involved in the sport, as you can imagine, is because of that. We saw a moment ago Zoltán Kalai, who made his World Championship debut in, or rather made his most recent World Championship appearance in Montreal. Kurbanov's debut was at that competition, and he hasn't missed one since. $12.55 for Elina Virova. She goes into the lead, 8.15 execution score. It certainly looked as though it was a tad more precise than qualification. The judges concurred, raising her by almost 3/10. Marta Piankulesza, 33-year-old gymnast from Szczecin in Poland. 6th strongest in qualification. Crisp. Oh, it was crisp. She's done remarkably well just to stay in contact with the apparatus, though. Well, it was a massive amount of core strength that she employed to stay on as long as she possibly could, but it was a routine she was perhaps a touch battling against from those early moments. 18 World Cup medals, Marta Piankulesza, and she may well add to that as the weekend goes on. Gymnast who made her comeback a couple of years ago after having her first child. Physiotherapy graduate, and she runs a gym. Super gymnast.
Ott már volt egy kisebb rontás, de onnan még tudta folytatni a gyakorlatás, itt már a körfél nem ment át.
How does Kurbanov's mark compare to qualification? 14.6, he is pleased indeed with that. He's lost a little bit of difficulty. 3/10 of it. It's just a 10th of execution, but it is the leading mark. Christopher Mezaros, a 19-year-old athlete from the host nation. Was a top 8 performer at the Junior European Championships on Pommel horse in Glasgow. Good height here, good clearance on the handles. Just got to watch the legs don't drift down a little bit towards the edge of the apparatus. They're brushing. Almost. Highly promising. Can often happen as a pommel horse routine goes on that high clearance at the start just becomes a little less high. But for the second time today, we see signs, don't we, in Mészáross's work that indicate great capacity as a top-level gymnast. And just his 4th World Cup event, all part of the rich learning process. One imagines he will learn a great deal just watching the remaining competitors in this, such are the names that are coming up. Particularly the next gentleman. .4 for Marta Pian Kulesha. She finds herself in 3rd place. And we will see more of her across the course of the weekend. It is a senior international debut for Lara Hinsberger from Saarland in the southwest of Germany. 5th strongest in qualification. That's very tidy. Now in qualification there, attempting that Van Leuven, she exited the apparatus. Not this time, so this could be a bit of a game changer from a score perspective. Very interesting, Lara Hinsberger. Well delivered routine. Some of the young German gymnasts did lots of work on trampolines in their gardens during lockdown. They were then taken to Frankfurt to train under very complex health and safety to get used to working on the apparatus again. Jaeger was well executed. Salto had decent form to it. Did well to control a potential overarch and coming off the apparatus there. 12.3 for Christopher Mészáros. 5.6 difficulty though, that's a positive, up by a couple of tenths from qualification. Indicative of what he can do. We know what he can do. Filip Ude, 34-year-old from Čakovec in the far north of Croatia, Olympic silver medalist in Beijing, history maker in artistic gymnastics for Croatia, same year that he won European Championship silver in Lausanne. Difficult work here. Oh, it's lovely, precise hand placement. It's rapid. didn't quite get that dismount according to plan. The shake of the head indicative of that. But so much of that routine was a real treat from Filip Ude. Continuing to deliver high quality routines at a relatively advanced stage of his career. Not often that he's not the oldest man in the competition. Only the third oldest in this final. Those of you watching Pommel horse for the first time, the athletes have got to be balanced in their use of the apparatus. 3 discrete sections of the horse, as I'm sure you can see, demarcated by the handles. They've got to use all 3 bits, just as gymnasts have to use all sections of the floor. 12.8 for Hinsberger, and she now goes into the lead, up by almost a full mark, the bulk of which came for staying on whilst attempting that Van Leuven transition from low to high. Now to Diana Warinska, the top qualifier, 13.15. High difficulty. Using Stolder work in transitioning from low to high, and then the Maloney. Kachev into the mixed grip, into the Jaeger. There's the difficult connection work. And she dismounts with amplitude. Diana Warinska. That's going to be a real contender as Marta Piankulesha beams at her. Everyone fist bumping in the manner of snowboarders at the conclusion of a performance. And she certainly got big air on that dismount. Shaposhnik, a variation from the Chow group of transitions there in that aforementioned Stolder position. Here the difficulty, it's the combination, linking the 2 elements together, not just the mixed grip of the Kachev, but linking it into the Jaeger that is so very impressive. We await Matvey Petrov after Filip Ude's score has been handed down by the judges. Strong likelihood of a new leader in the women's uneven bars. 14 for Ude. Second place for him. Kurbanov 1, Ude 2, and then Kalai 3. We're at the halfway mark. From Albania, 30-year-old, born in Bryansk Oblast in the Russian Federation, Matvey Petrov. The answer to that question earlier, it was Tatiana Nabieva that he teamed with in a mixed pairs event in Czech Republic in 2017. I'm sure you knew that. Highest difficulty score in qualification. And that's why. Some good flares here. Got to keep the pace going. Nearly, nearly, nearly. Back into the flares. This is taking enormous core strength from Petrov. He's being roared on by his fellow competitors. Can he get there? Can he get there? Oh, all of the strength in the biceps of Matvey Petrov to fight his way through that difficult routine. There might be a few coffee cups that have just been kicked across the room in Albania with excitement at that performance. Not according to plan at the very beginning, but let us remember, 17-year-old athlete. Last year, her first full senior year, she competed 6 international competitions, including the European Championships and the European Games. She's a gymnast with a terrific reputation in terms of her determination to learn new skills. One of the things that really marked her out as a junior gymnast, according to teammates and coaches, was that she just was determined to get things right, and that's evident after qualification, having problems with that Ginga. Getting it bang on there. Second place for Matvei Petrov, 14.05. Now then, Albania potentially on a podium at an FIG international gymnastics competition. Do you remember that happening before? We've been scouring the record books and cannot find it. They have won regional medals. More on that later as we look at Daniel Kopenik, 25-year-old athlete from Austria, the 5th strongest qualifier. Well, he did well to make light of a pretty hefty leg separation. Reigning Austrian champion on the Pommel horse. Here's Kopejnik, just his second ever World Cup final in his 9th attempt. Comes from Pommel in Tyrol, beautiful town of 13,000 in central Austria, right in the Karwendel Mountains. It dates back to 1256. Comes from the Celtic word for salt, as the salt mine used to form the main industry of the medieval town. He's more accustomed to chalk now.
Kombinációt láttunk az orosz körökkel. Ment végig a lovon, rót és a
Now whether Kopejnik has got the execution, considering his difficulty, is around about half a mark lower than some of the other performers, to contend for a medal position, we shall find out in a while. Zoya Sekai, 11.75. She's in 5th position. The lead still with Valinska. Second place with the impressive Hinsberger. 3rd position for Elina Verova. We have 2 to go. Lisa Zimmermann, Hinsberger's teammate, will attempt to deprive her of a medal now. 4th strongest in qualification. She also came off overarched a little bit, so one to watch here. Tidy. Just a little bit of loss of form as she went into that pack salto, if we're splitting hairs. Maloney was well executed. Has to really build up the power and swingfulness. But that tidier routine from Zimmermann, much like her teammate, they both come back after qualification and avoided the unintentional dismounts that hemorrhaged a mark each. Really did perform well, particularly on balance beam at the World Championship trials for Germany last year. Didn't quite make the team, but still plenty of time. It's her turn, or her transition with the half turn added to it, which a lot of gymnasts do to bolster the difficulty, and that's one thing that you'll doubtless be learning if you're new to the sport, is the addition of little details like that to bring up the difficulty up by tenths here and there, assuming of course that it is correctly completed and the judges are willing to credit it. Nearly for Kopejnik, 13.1, he's in 4th position. Execution down by 0.8 compared to qualification. The bronze medalist just moments ago on the floor exercise, Petro Pachniuk, 4th strongest in qualification, 14.3. One wonders, is the door open a little bit here for Pachniuk? No, it is not. Oh, he looks cross with himself, surprised with himself. Again, I return to the leitmotif of the day, which is these are gymnasts returning to elite competition. This is going to happen a little more than it might at other events. Whilst talking about pommel horses with Petro Pachniuk, he is actually very accomplished at the real thing. He's a very skilled horseman. Says he doesn't get to ride as often as he used to on horses now that he's a father. He's from a military family. And he does get through the routine following that interruption. Very interesting gentleman is Pak Nyuk, with such a diverse range of experiences. He attended music school as a child, though he has subsequently said he hated it and all he wanted to do was gymnastics. Was a little overarched on that handstand, seemed to bring it back under control. This is what we were going to see, the moment there where things just went slightly wrong for him. .7 for Lisa Zimmermann. She gains half a mark from qualification. What an excellent display from the two German athletes in this final. They really have risen to it being a final. Cut out some of the errors in qualification. Chenga Bachkoy, 8th strongest qualifier, 10.8, but she's got marks that she can really pick up now after having some problems in qualifying. Hip circle into the Kachev. Just lost her former touch on the back salto, but she's okay. Oh. Just hasn't quite gone according to plan for the Hungarian gymnasts on the uneven bars today. Well, it all but solidifies Diana Warinska's top spot, but such is the splendid etiquette of gymnastics. There shall be no celebration until the time is right. So Chenga Bachkoy concludes the women's uneven bars final. Gymnast who trains at the Central Sports and Youth Association, or KSI as it's known, in Budapest. Very prestigious multi-sport centre.
Szaltó, amiből rögtön folytatta a talforgás kézemállással, és sajnos itt a támla már nem ment át.
Pak Nyuk waits for a number that he does not wish to see, 13 and 5th place. And what that means, as a result, is that Matvei Petrov of Albania has just secured a medal. And if any of you out there know of undiscovered World Cup results for Albania in international gymnastics, speak now or forever hold your peace, because that could be a true history-making moment. Robert Seligman of Croatia is the final competitor. As things stand, it is Kurbanov, Petrov and Uday. Could deprive his teammate here, Seligman, 3rd strongest in qualification. Smooth and precise. Magyar to the Shivado, the common combination. Well, he looks pleased as punched as Robert Seligman. 5th time in the Szombathely Pommel horse final. He's got a bit of a history of qualifying high and finishing low. He was first in qualification in 2017, came 7th, but as he celebrates with Matvei Petrov, could well be that Seligman has got himself onto the podium. 14.45, as I said, in qualification. If he manages to equal that, then he takes the silver medal. 14.6 is the target score for gold. It's 8.5 for Chenga Bajkoi, has her in 8th position. And that means that we will be in a position to bring you the classified results in the women's uneven bars. But first and foremost, it is silver for Seligman. 14.35. He knew after that performance that he had done something that got himself very much in contention. And indeed so. He has deprived Philippe Houdet of a medal. Houdet drops down into 4th position.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, we will continue with the award ceremony of the women's.
So after the classified results, we'll bring you the victory ceremonies in both the women's uneven bars and the men's pommel horse, and then it is on to the men's still rings to conclude our coverage on day 1 here in Szombathely. Surely it can't be almost over. Let's just make up a few more events. Let's bring back club juggling. Anything to keep the competition going on for as long as possible. Well, we have confirmation of the final standings in the men's pommel horse appearing on the big screen. And what that means is Matvei Petrov has made it onto a podium. More on that in a bit. The classified result in the women's uneven bars competition. And what a display from the 2 young German gymnasts. In many ways the stars of the final, going from 5th and 4th position to 2nd and 3rd behind the hugely impressive Diana Wawrinska. 13.4. She gained 2.5 tenths from qualification, with a very nicely performed routine indeed. For Wawrinska, it is a 12th World Cup medal, a 7th gold. Her first gold back in 2017 at the Baku World Cup. The final standings in the men's pommel horse competition, and history made by Matvei Petrov of Albania getting a bronze medal. Robert Seligman rolling back the years to get a silver. The 34-year-old positioned just behind Nariman Kurbanov, the youngster, 22, holding on from top qualification spot to win the title.